Okay, everybody, we are live and I'm recording. It is October 31st and Wednesday. We're launching into week 2 of the October Business of Wine course. And there'll be a sort of pattern to these classes. I'll open it up to any questions anybody has. Sometimes I'll get email questions, or there'll be things on the Facebook page, discussion forum that I'll address. But at this point, does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything they feel they need to share? Okay, great. And thank you for having your face there, Steve. It gives me a kind of a sense of reality. And it's so funny how the dynamics from one class to the next. This is really great. I love to have a number of people on the live call, but many times I end up and there's nobody there. And in each class, sometimes I'll have a core group that'll show up every class. Sometimes it's totally random. So there's no worries, no harm, no foul about how much live participation you have or not. Okay. All right. So since we're still fairly early in the course, I'm also going to reinforce a couple things as we go through, and as everybody's kind of feeling their way along. And we had some late registrations. So we've got a lot of people that are also going to be playing catch up for a bit. So there we go. So just for a quick review, this is the Napa Valley Wine Academy Learning Management System. Any problem getting into this or directly with this LMS, contact me and I can get you to the right person at Napa Valley Wine Academy. But if it's a password or login to this site, you can double check with them directly, okay? And the overview of the course, the most important thing to know is that we're in lesson winery quality and value decisions, week 1 and 2. This is our lesson that we're on now. And then when you click on that, it'll get you to some resources and a little bit of the outcomes for this 2-week period, and reading that I highly recommend. I don't track this is up to you, but Critical Thinking, Grape Research Project, and a couple of you really great kudos. Some fun stuff has been showing up, and this is picking a wine or a winery and calling them and having a conversation about their grape prices and costs. And we've got one post about avocado wine and the cost of avocados from Homestead, Florida, which is near to where I grew up. There's also a good paper in the costs to plant and maintain a vineyard, and highly recommended, and especially for anybody in the Master of Wine or higher level WSET, an actual grape purchase agreement contract outline that is very valuable to really go in and take a look at how does the grower protect their value, their products, what are they looking for in a contract, juxtapose critically thinking, what is a buyer looking for and what do they want. There are also a lot of hot topics going on right now. So again, if you go to winebusiness.com or Wine Industry Network or Wine Industry Insights, Lou Perdue, you'll find a lot of very fresh articles about growers or wineries that were rejecting contracts due to smoke taint. And this is causing a really big furor because it's really hard to absolutely determine what level of smoke taint, how negative would it adversely affect the wine, and the fact that a lot of growers in certain supply and demand periods, growers want to get out of contracts. but they just want to defer it. They don't want to maybe end the long term, but maybe they're things are piling up in their own inventory or through the distribution network and in stores, and they want to lower their production for a year, but they don't want to end the contract, so they'll try to find an excuse to reject the fruit, but maintain the terms and conditions of the contract, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's a lot of stuff going on about that right now, okay? So any questions about this part of the course or the website? Okie doke. So let me go through the kind of the topics that have come up. Tim Fishback had asked if I'd give more detail on what we're looking for with our first project. You betcha. That's what we're going to do today. And it was really good because he's been playing around with the program, and that's what I really recommend everybody does. And not sure what to focus on. And this is where, again, the critical thinking comes in. What would you want to, if you're running a financial plan for your cost of goods, all right? The grapes, the fermentation, aging and selling, cellaring treatments, packaging, so on and so forth. What would you be looking for in terms of the outcome financially from a product, all right? So this is really great because this really gets to the heart of what I want you, how I want you to think. And then don't forget, got my little props here, that the end result of a wine product, most of us only think in terms of, you know, the winemaking process and the handcrafted this and that and the story that we want to tell and so on and so forth, okay? And so what you're getting is a combination of the heart and soul of the winemaker and what their intention with the product is, but you're also getting input from marketing. You know, we need a story to tell, we need certain characteristics in the production, oak aged or aged in new French oak or no oak, you know, could be the marketing story. And these are all, you know, part of this, the production process, determining what are the goods and how much did it cost to produce them? What kind of margin do you have, okay? And that vector then between producing it, how much did it cost and how much margin, that's the financial hat. And so Tim point, you know, what do you want to focus on? High gross profit? Well, that's what finance is looking for. Sometimes winemaking may be looking for that, but they're not really paying attention to, well, you know, we could create the quality that we need to out of this product. And if I took this route or made this decision and it improved our gross profit, that could be my bonus. I mean, that's the reality of it, all right? And then of course, sales is always going to have a lot of input because sales is responsible. What are we going to do for it when it is made and it's marketed and whatever? So sales is also working with the forecasting of what kind of quantity levels and so forth. So this is kind of a stretch, but it's really true. Imagine your sales team is communicating with marketing, and you're supposed to make 10,000 cases of a certain wine, but sales is telling you, you know what, the last year's vintage isn't selling through as fast. It looks like things might be steadying or dipping a little bit. So demand is going down. I know we've got the vintage on the vine being picked right now, but can we put a little bit of a lid on our production this year? We don't need as much wine. And this is a big conversation, and this is important to understand in the construct of a tiny winery or a huge winery. And so then marketing gets back to the vineyard department and says, is there any way we can reduce the amount of fruit we've got coming in? And so then the vineyard department says, well, we got a bumper crop here. We actually have more fruit. And then it's over to finance. Well, what are we going to do? And finance might then end up saying, hey, can we sell off some of our fruit if we're an estate? Can we get out of any of these contracts? What can we do to back things up so that we can normalize our inventories? And this has a direct correlation to what's going on with the rejection of fruit due to fire and smoke taint. Because a lot of it's just bogus. It's people want to elegantly and economically get out of a contract for a while. And so they could say, oh, we'd love to have your fruit, but we know you've had the forest fires, and so we're not going to take our contract this year. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions? All right. The second thing that I want to address as we're going through this is from Corey, and it's nice. Corey was in one of my favorite classes I teach in the world. It's a UC Davis Office International de la Vigne et du Vin marketing short course. And if anybody's looking for a really great intensive, like 3-week program, ask Corey about this and his experience. This is done at UC Davis every summer, and I've been the closing speaker for 20 consecutive years. But anyways, this is a question that fits into what I call the unanswerable question. When you're pricing a wine, where do you start? When you're ideating, okay, in marketing, there's ideation. Oh, let's think of the next new big thing, or let's look at what kind of products we need to add to our portfolio, those kind of things. Ideation could be, let's start a vineyard. Where should we go? What should we do? So it starts with that idea. And so Casey is looking at how to price a product, and he's looking at all the right things. He's done a kind of competitive analysis of neighboring vineyards and this and that. And so as I'm addressing how do you actually go about pricing a new brand or a new wine, there is no answer. There are many options to weigh and consider, and that's critical thinking. Okay, so, and here's how it goes from a conversation I had this morning for an interview I did for a wine business magazine on product development. There's a bottoms-up approach to wine that starts with the land, the costs, the investment, the development, the production and market. So it's supply chain from the ground up. And in that kind of a case, it's kind of the ground that's going to dictate a lot of decisions. The ground's going to be in a certain climate. There will be certain, things with rainfall and soil and this and that. That's then going to dictate different grape variety opportunities. And then you look at, but you're building it from the ground up, okay? And it starts in Washington right now, and this was Napa years ago, and this is France too. A lot of times it starts with, wow, I'm taking over my dad's business, and we've got cherries, we've got corn, we've got barley and plums and apples. I want to start a vineyard, and I've got the land, and we're going to do this bottom up. Top down actually starts with the market, and even with a product that you want to model. And that might be because of a certain passion. It could be high end or low end, but it's really, okay, this is the kind of product I want to make. This is, and it's because I want to make a wine like a great Burgundian Pinot Noir. So I want to go to Willamette Valley, or I want to make a really great red wine, and it's going to start with Napa Valley or Paso Robles or Red Mountain or somewhere in Virginia or whatever. But it's really from the product back, not from the ground up, all right? And then in pricing it all, it's really what we're going to do today is look at pushing and pulling the levers so that you can start to say, okay, I want to be positioned in the market at this level. And a lot of your question, Corey, we're not really going to answer till later in the course when we get there. But it starts with doing the homework around what are your competitors doing? What does the market look like? What is the current situation of supply and demand? Is there, and here's one of the things you've really got to consider in supply and demand. You may do all your financials based on a certain point in time of supply and demand that might not be sustainable over time, as far as if you're in a high demand where prices are high for the grapes and this kind of stuff, and you do your financials, you say, oh my God, we ran the 15-year plan, we're great. And then in 2-3 years, all of a sudden demand goes down and you're stuck with all this acreage and no customers for the product. And this goes for grapes, this goes for all the everything that goes into the wine. And so you've also got to be able to look at forecasting and stability and get a sense of where the market is now, so that the things you're basing your competitive analysis, are you at the top of the market or are you at the bottom of the market? Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense by the time we get into it. All right. So the project, as you all should know, is a cost of goods workbook with the financial calculator. And I'm going to go over the steps how to get there. Some of you are already jumping into this and having a blast. Some of you just entered the course. And some of you are just like me, and they're terrified of new technology, and especially if it involves numbers and spreadsheets. But that's why I invented these workbooks, because I hate this stuff, and we're trying to make it a little bit more fun and easier to go. All right, so where you want to go is spreadsheetserver.com. You've been sent many links. You should have a username and a password. If you have any problems with this website, you lose your password, you're all set up. So just remember, if you want to use the forgot password function, use the email you signed up for the course with. It'll email you back your password and you're in. That's easy, okay? And if you have a problem, like I said, contact me, not Napa Valley Wine Academy. This is my baby. All right, so you put that in and you go in and you're going to see something like this. And in this, and remember, you've got a year's subscription to all these workbooks. So you can play with this. You can actually do your business financials for a winery, for a tasting room, using these. The one we're going to be looking at is the cost of goods calculator. So you're going to select that, cost of goods. Then you're going to hit new. Now I've got the I'm the administrator, so we have a dashboard. You won't see that, right? And then you're into a new project. Do not forget that your project is going to be stored on our server, not your computer. And this URL up here is how you get back to your project, all right? So Ann, you and I were talking about if you're using a computer at work and one at home or whatever, find some way to make a note that you can access, or just even write this down, or take a picture with your phone. That's what my son does. And this is what you need to get back to a project that you've been working on, okay? The other thing, if you're just working primarily on one computer, just bookmark or add this to your favorites. It's a little button over here. It would say, where do you want it to save? You can put it in your bookmarks bar and so on. But name it whatever your project is. In this case, $25 red blend for class or something like that, okay? And then whenever you need to go back to the project, what you do is you go into your favorites folder, I've got all my things here. I've got my past projects, and then you pick which project you wanted to go to work on, and it'll bring it up. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so remember, put your name in. Date's not all that important. Put the name of the project and the winery name. Now, for your cost of goods project, you can do a case study, find a $25 red blend, preferably from California, just because we're using the Great Crush Report and that kind of stuff. But for now, just work on this project. You're going to have an opportunity to do multiple projects, and you'll have, again, access to this whole suite of workbooks for a year. So you might just even name the project $25 red blend, or it could be something fanciful, or it could be, you know, whatever case study you want to do from a real wine online or on the shelf. Okay. Now, here are the primary things that are going to determine your potential for making money out of this project. How many cases are you going to produce? And what are you as a winery going to sell the wine for, your FOB or your ex-sellers, sometimes it's referred to, price. And this would be if a distributor said, oh, I want to sell your wines in our state, you would sell it to them at this price. If you've got a wine club, you would probably want to establish a transfer price so that you can efficiently run your wine operations, your production, and then you actually, even if it's just a formality or a technicality, you would sell the wine to the wine club, you would sell the wine to the tasting room at your FOB cost, okay? So this combination determines what your gross revenue is. It's how much you sell the wine for and how many cases, and that gives you your gross revenue, okay? Now, we talked a little bit about, and I've got you guys doing some great cost projects. And remember that we're doing a red blend. You can do up to 8 different varieties. If you want, there are some, even in the red, we'll even have whites. If you wanted to do a Syrah and then co-ferment that with Viognier, which is a popular thing to do now, you can determine how much of the Syrah you want. Could be 90% and then 10% of the Viognier. And then you're going to do some research to find out, given a certain locale and the resources that we provided, and ask if you have any questions on the discussion forum. You know, you might be able, right now, Syrah is actually relatively inexpensive from a lot of areas, so it's an opportunity grape because so much was planted, but that market didn't realize. So maybe you can get $1,500 a ton for your Syrah. Now, what you're going to want to do is look at this dashboard up here. My margin right now is $118,000. That's how much I'm making. And then if I lower my cost of the grapes, and let's say that Viognier is $1,200 a ton, and that's 10% of my blend, ooh, just by making that decision in the grapes, I've increased my gross margin from $118,000 to almost $135,000. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so this is what to play with. And again, anybody that needs to do something really in depth with vineyards, let me know. We've got a whole separate, very complicated but unbelievable vineyard calculator as well. Right now, we're just going to work at basic numbers. Okay? All right, so that's kind of a review of what we got through on Monday night. And what we're going to look at now is the production worksheet. So the rest of this, and your first project is formally due a week from today, but if it comes in very late, I'm fine. If you get your projects turned in, I'm good to go. It's nice to keep up with your work for those of you who like to do those kind of things, and it's appreciated from my end. All right. So so in the production, here are the key things that a winemaker and the CFO and everybody's thinking about. Number one, are you using all wine that you're making, or are you embellishing that maybe with some bulk wine that you might buy on the bulk wine market? We're going to start talking about that next Wednesday. Or maybe you've got some other material that you want to blend in that's already finished wine. And so it allows you to determine what percentage of bulk or other material can go in on a cost per gallon basis. All right. So where you put the cost per gallon is down here. So let's say that I wanted to, I was able to find some inexpensive Zinfandel on the bulk market, and I wanted to add that to this blend, and it's only going to cost me 20 bucks a gallon. So now watch my margin up here. As I go up or down, you notice every percent I add's adding $1,000 or a couple $1,000 to my bottom line. All right. So finance is cheering, but winemaking and marketing might be having a heart attack. All right. Another calculator or calculation most people don't think about when you're looking at these big beautiful presses, you know, the Bucher press with the bladder and the pneumatic and computer and this and that. Most people aren't looking at that squeezing out profit on the bottom line. Now, the calculator set at a baseline of 60 cases of wine from a ton of grapes. There are a lot of winemakers that demand not exceeding 50 cases conversion. And so again, here's in gross margin, we're at about $135,000. If I decide I want to do light pressing and I go down to 50 gallons, all right, that's about a $23,000 decision that was made, right? If you wanted to see if you could squeeze a little bit more, you can step it on up to 65. Oh, that's great. We're making an additional $8,000. And if we had 10,000 cases, it would be magnified by that much more, okay? So I want every one of you, when you see a piece of equipment in a winery, or if you're online or just perusing wines, this is the mentality I want you to start to apply here, okay? Now, processing and production costs are usually established on a per ton basis. And we've just got a number plugged in here, $800, all right? If you go to a custom crush winery, they will give you a number very often, and it might depend on the type of grape and some things, but they might say, oh, you know, we can do this for $248 a ton. And that actually just happened with somebody in one of the other business programs that I do. So, they'll do it for $248 a ton. Well, have you ever gone into a restaurant and everything's a la carte? You just say, oh, I'd like this steak. Oh, do you want a baked potato? Sure, I'll take the baked potato. Would you like sour cream and fresh spring onions? Oh, sure. And would you like asparagus with that? Oh, yeah. Would you like hollandaise on the? And what they're doing is every time you turn around, you might not be aware until this happens a couple times, that they're adding all of these additional things onto, and all of a sudden you get your bill and $95 for my steak. Oh, well, it was $45, you know, for your USDA choice New York strip, but it was $6 for the potatoes, $2 additional for the sour cream, $3 for the bacon that we put on it. Your asparagus was $8. The hollandaise was an additional, and you don't know it. So it's really interesting when you're thinking about the cost of fermentation and basic production. if you were at a winery and doing this, you'd work with your accountant and say, I need to know how many tons of fruit we processed and what was our cost per ton of the processing, okay? And that's kind of what goes in here. If you're meeting with a custom crush provider or something like that, the conversation should go, what's your basic cost of fermentation? And then what other typical additional charges might there be? And they can be many. So this person was unaware that every time they asked for a sample of their wine, they were getting charged $25 to try their own wine. Somebody's got to go take the sample and this. Oh, you wanted to have this treatment done to your wine. Oh, I thought that was part of it. Well, no, we gave you just the a la carte price for processing your fruit. Okay, does that make sense? And you might know what the basic processing per ton cost is, but there may be, for certain varieties like Pinot Noir, you might want special open top fermenters, a little additional expense. And then before handling and before fermentation, you might want to chill the grapes down, do a heavy sorting, and do a cold soak. All right. And so that's what this additional pre-fermentation handling and treatment is. And then you've got any additional lab work or whatever. Sometimes that can be broken out separately and so forth. Okay. Then you're going to have taxes, and whenever you see a blue thing like this, click on it, and this will open up the tax structure for each state for working into your cost of goods also, okay? So if you were going to exceed 16% alcohol, or if you were going to do certain things, there might be a different tax basis than is put in here, all right? At the end of this page, what you end up with is your cost of finished material, the wine, all right? The next step then is to go into barrel costs. Now, this is something that could cause you nightmares or you can play with for days. People think, all right, well, the cost of oak is because French oak barrels cost this much. The evaporative loss from a case of wine can be greater than the cost of the barrel. This is the evaporation that occurs in the porosity of the wood, dependent on the ambient humidity and temperature and this and that. And it very often can be 10% if you're stupid, and become this incredible amount per month that you're losing. It's called the angel share. This is the wine evaporating up to the angels and whatever. So the total cost of barrel, again, you don't have to learn how to use this 100%, but it's really, really good to learn all of the smaller variables that are in play that come up with how much did it cost to age that case of wine in what kind of barrels for how long, okay? Any questions on that? Cellar and storage is going to be final treatments if they're not already covered in the basic winemaking costs. A lot of people, as you play more and more with barrels, you'll see why people are using oak alternatives. Maybe you age your wine in barrel for a couple of months, and even in French barrels, but not very new ones. But then you actually use oak alternatives, which could be liquids, they could be oak chips or blocks or this and that. And you actually get your character from the additives, but for the marketing story, you put it into French barrels for a couple months so that you can legally say that. Nobody would ever do that, would they? Yes, they would. Who? That's the bigger question. Then you're going to have certain things. If you need specialized filtrations or this, you're going to need to store your case goods. When you store your case goods, you might have to go to a separate warehouse facility, and they might charge you fees for taking the wines in and out and this and that. And at the end of this, you've got your total cost of the completely finished wine, all right? Then the next step is going to be your barrel costs, I'm sorry, your packaging costs. And if you, a lot of people know that their packaging cost is $36 or $28 or $54. But this is a breakdown so that you can actually get present to how much do the bottles cost, corks, screw caps, whatever kind of closure, capsules if you use corks or other closures. What does the label cost? Almost always the boxes are usually included with when you buy the glass. It comes in the box, so that's done. But you might want to have special graphics on your boxes or colors, especially if you're going to use them for in-store displays and so forth. Certificate of label approval. You've got to get that from the government before you can legally make your wine. And then you've got to bottle and fill. You might do that in-house. You might use a mobile bottling service that comes to you, or you might send your barrels or your product to a bottling facility. But these are the kind of considerations that go into that. And then it'll run your number. This will be your breakdown and percentage of contribution of each of these elements and so forth. Now, the other thing is there's an algorithm in here that's going to take your FOB price, add to it a, if you will, benchmark distribution costs and markups, and then a retail 33.33% markup, and so that it'll give you an estimated retail selling price as you're going through. And this is just sort of as a rough guide. We're going to get into this in a lot more detail later in the course, and there's a whole separate calculator for this. But this will give you what the distributor selling price estimate would be and what the retail price estimate would be for your product. And those are also what you see on here for the estimated retail selling price. Groovy? Okay, so the production of wine is a business. Because wine is such a passionately based kind of things, a lot of people just can't wrap their head around this, or they get so caught up in it's got to be a certain way because I'm so passionate about the wines of blah blah or woof woof that there's no other way to do it. And what you really need to know, they're running these as businesses also. This is not a new world phenomenon. Bulk wine has been around longer than bottled wine. Bottled wine is a relatively new phenomenon within the last century. Chateau Mouton Rothschild was the first winery ever in Bordeaux to actually bottle their own wine, and that was less than 100 years ago, right? So thinking about the big picture, you know, we're looking right in here, you know, in getting it, and then we've got a long way to go. So when we talk about the three-tiered distribution system, it's actually 3 tiers of licensing, and the first tier is being licensed to produce a wine. Okay. When we think of wineries, I'm old. I think of the beautiful chateau on the knoll and the vineyards cascading down the gentle slopes to the Gironde or the steep cliffs of the Mosel or whatever, and there's a winery and there's vineyards. So that's a traditional estate model, and it's fast disappearing. Wine production options today consists of the following. Don't forget, I'm going to send you a copy, a PDF of this presentation to look at. There is the traditional estate model, but more and more there's a winery with no vineyards. They want the production as a business unencumbered by the grapes, and they want to leave that to people who specialize in growing grapes. Okay. And again, there's a lot of history for this kind of a model also. Something relatively new in the production landscape is called an alternating proprietorship, which is a form of a co-op. And it's going through a lot of challenges and changes right now. And this is why we can't have a book about this, because if I had written about the book 6 months ago, I couldn't talk about it intelligibly from the situation today. Alternating proprietorship is a facility where there's investment or ownership or even almost a condo kind of a thing, an owners association where you can opt in. And so the cost of the facility, the land for the facility, all the equipment and supplies is shared by a number of different proprietors or owners or people who are participating parties. And what each of those individuals or companies that are a part of the co-op have to have their own production licensing and permits, okay? When they are using equipment, they are the proprietor of record, and there's actually, I believe there's supposed to be a formality of even hanging the license. Nobody does this stuff, but I'm the proprietor now, I'm using the crusher in this, all right, I'm done, next person in line. So you alternate the licensed use of the facility alternates from one owner to the next. When these things work well, they are magical. They are these wonderful collaborative, rock and roll blaring expertise oozing out of different areas. If you've got a problem, you go over here and these people help you, and you're sharing and you're working together. When they work badly, they are a nightmare. What do you mean I can't use the crusher? I've got my grapes right here. They got to go. I've got to unload them from you. Blah, blah. No, I've got my license hanging. You get out of here. So just like any family or relationship, these things can work or not. Custom crush is contract production between an individual and a company and a producer that is produced under the Custom Crush Wineries license and facilities to specifications and as much or as little actual intervention or participation by the client. When a wine is made by a custom crush facility, so Jill, let's say that you want to make your wine, you go to the custom crush, you tell them you want Cabernet, you might have your own winemaker, and you might even have your own grape sources, all right? And you just need somebody to ferment it, you're ready to go into business. The custom crush facility has to purchase the grapes. You do not. You can set up the cost, you can set everything up, but the transaction has to happen between the grower and the licensed facility. You're the client, they're the producer. You can have your winemaker go in, make every work order, make every decision of what's going on. You might do it yourself, but you're the client. They are the producer of record, all right? When the wine is made and you take possession of it, you have to have a wholesale license because you're not a producer. You're taking possession of finished goods, okay? So if you're custom crushing wines, technically you're not producing the wine. It's not your license, it's not your product, okay? The thing that's changing was people were getting really creative. Well, what if Jill created an LLC with the custom crush facility and got the permit under this LLC name so that Jill could say, I'm the winemaker, I'm the produced and bottled at Jill Duffy Vineyards or Cellars and whatever. So that's actually happening, but it's being contested in court right now. So a lot of people who had thought, oh, we've got this great workaround, they're getting kind of a rude awakening on that right now. Another production option is, all right, I'm going to buy bulk wine on the bulk wine market, and I'm going to blend it. I'm going to have it bottled for me. And again, you're not the producer. As a matter of fact, you've had very little input into that. And next week, we're going to take a real close look at this. But the one thing I want you to walk away, bulk wine does not mean cheap wine. There are first growth quality Bordeaux's available on the bulk wine market and historically have been. There are unbelievable quality wines from all over the world. And I'm going to give you an actual inventory of a current bulk wine list from Australia with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lots of wines, from pennies on the dollars to really expensive and whatever, okay? So we'll talk about bulk wines. Then the other thing is shiners, all right? Shiners are where you, a winery, and there are wineries that do nothing but make wine for this market. The wine is made, bottled, a cork or screw cap, and if a cork, a capsule are on it, but they're generic, and people just buy the product finished, put their label on it. It's the fastest to market, and it's a very, very big and vibrant part of the global wine business. All right, and they call them shiners because they're shiny. All right, we'll show you a picture in a minute, I think. So what goes into the cost of the goods? Grapes, production, aging, selling, packaging, storage, taxes, permits, licensing, and so forth. This is a really different look, and you can go into your wine biz sim and make a $200 Cabernet. Make $500 of a $200 Cabernet, spend a lot, spend 10 grand for the grapes, and see how much margin you get from that. And a real quick trick, if I'm working on this project and I want to do my $25 red blend, save your work and then clone it, all right? And it'll actually give you a new project and say, okay, I don't want this project. And now, by the way, if you can't input your fields, look up in the corner next to auto filter. If it says edit, click it, and then you'll be able to edit. Now, what I'm gonna do is then, wait for this to load. I'm gonna make 500 cases of a wine that's gonna sell at, what should we say, 150 bucks a bottle? $1,800 a case. That's gonna retail for $250 a bottle. And ooh, look at this. I can make $1 million almost. I got $856,000 margin. How much more does it cost to get grapes for that? Okay, so maybe I'm looking at Cabernet at the top of the chart. And it's going to cost me 10 grand a ton. All right. And I want to put some Cabernet Franc in there just because I like the way that sounds. But you know, the symbiosis and the blah, blah, woof, woof, and this and that. And maybe that's costing me $6,000 a ton. All right. Ooh, look at this. I'm still making almost $800,000. Let's go to the bank. And so on and so forth, because now barrels are going to cost you a lot more. You're going to find out in that $60 bottle of Cabernet, there's a huge amount of margin. Where does that go? That's your superstar winemaker salary. That's bonuses for your sales team. That's incentives to the salespeople in the distributors. This is your kitty to determine how the heck am I going to sell all this stuff. This is the ad you take out in the Wine Spectator, but you know that the ads do not influence the scores, right? All right, so that's how to look at that and play with this. Because most of us are just familiar with this, that this is what goes into the cost of a bottle. It's really, really different, okay? So as you're doing this, what do consumers care about? Do consumers really care that much about the terroir and the origin of the grapes and this? Some do, some don't. How much do they care, and which ones? And does your product for the intended market, does it meet the criteria and the expectation? And it's very different between somebody who's taking wine courses and the enthusiast versus somebody who just loves wine. Who cares about what, from the producer standpoint, gets back to our many hats and and so forth. But at the end of the day, is anybody really looking? Most people don't know that Screaming Eagle started out as a custom crush project. And so did Paulmeyer. They were made at Napa Valley Wine Company, a custom crush facility right across the street from Oakville Grocery on the east side. So they're on the southeast corner. Okay. So as you're building this out, you've also got to be weighing different options. Oh, you know, I could do this, but what can I legally say on the label? What does the market that I'm marketing to expect out of this? And this is where you then can go in and play with your wine biz sim, and knowing that at the end of production, when you've established your FOB cost and made the sale, you lose control of the product and pricing. When you sell to a distributor, it's their product now. They own it. They'll still bill you back for things, but essentially they have to do this. And one of the fun things is we used to do a Chardonnay demo. I've got to update this. But if you put 6 or 8 months of aging into a Chardonnay at about 30,000 cases of production, and you look at the cost of the barrels, and you look at your margin, and then you take out the barrel aging, wow, really? You make that much more money? And you can see now you've got a budget to join the marketing campaign, the purity of our Chardonnay, not detracted by the oak and the blah, blah. See if you can find the most expensive unoaked Chardonnay in the market, do it online, go into a store, and just know that's a cash cow. All right? So again, every step of the way, these are the considerations. What grapes, what's my source, what's my cost, what does the market expect, what does the winemaker expect, how am I, how are we going to make this to our best advantage? If you're the actual grower, it's how can I produce the most fruit for the highest price per ton? How do I get my best return on investment? How do I market my vineyard? How do I market my products? And all the way through the chain. So some of the things from a technical standpoint that you need to know, some more than others, and especially MW students and higher education students in the course. Learn to understand what each building is and represents, and the licensing and the permitting that's required. So in the wine industry, there's something called bonded premises, and so this is registered. It's for the production, blending, selling, treatment, storing, and whatever. And there are two variations. One that's actually a bonded winery where you can actually produce the wine. And then there's a bonded cellar where wine can be legally stored. And so in Napa, in any wine country, there are storage facilities that create temperature controlled for barrels, for case goods, for bulk wine, but to do so, they have to be bonded and licensed to be able to do that. And then these are there are certain tax regulations and things you need to know about. So research these to the degree necessary. Wine geeks love to hate Meiomi. We love to hate it. We're so ignorant about history and tradition, and the Wagners are so smart. This is years ago that they sold it for $315 million. A winery, a label, a brand, and $315 million, and not a single vine, not a single acre of vineyard. That is really a smart business deal. Learn to appreciate a really good business deal. I can't tell you how many people, oh, but it's got this bit of residual sugar and it's not blah, blah, blah. Get over it. This is business. People say, oh, well, I don't drink red wines with a little residual sugar. Well, if you've ever heard of 1947 Chateau Cheval Blanc, if you've ever actually had the real thing, which is impossible to find anymore, it's easy to find counterfeits. It's easy to counterfeit because unless you've had it, you wouldn't know that it's got as much residual sugar as white Zinfandel. Not a teeny little bit like Naomi, but here's one of the most legendary red Bordeaux's ever produced in history, and it's 30 grams per liter of sugar. That's sweet. It's not just this tiny little infinitesimal hint. It's really sweet. So get over your enthusiasm and put your business hat on and keep your enthusiasm. All right. So here's an explanation of alternating proprietorships. For anybody really, really interested, go to the ttb.gov site and they'll give you incredible details and whatever. Custom crush facilities, it is not an AP. You are not a producer unless you're actually the facility, okay? And it tells you what it is. Now, the business of bulk wines we're going to get into next week, and you're going to have a chance to blend your own. And this is, to me, the most fun part of the course. Some people never do it, but I really highly recommend it. This is what the setup looks like. I'll get you the instructions and all that, so we'll go over that. And then shiners, as we talked about, this is the business of buying and selling wines that are finished, they're bottled goods. You create your label, put it on it, and send it off to market. Or if you're a grocery store, you run into, they've got people who are specifically buyers looking for shiners for that one wine that just oh my God, this is awesome. And it's a very, very big part of the wine business, okay? All right. That's 1 hour, holy moly. This is the TTB, so just go to www.ttb.gov and then select wine, and you'll find a huge amount on permits and legalities and exclamations and whatever. Do your homework. For those of you new to the course, that means go into, there's nothing to turn in, no homework to turn in. There's your projects, but your homework is going into a store and seeing a bottle. I got one. Anybody see this? Jill, did you see this in the store? Here's a normal bottle of wine. This is a freaking production and shipping and logistics and warehousing and display and inventory and bring it in your house. Now what the hell do you do it? This is a Pinot Blanc. Oh, it's Chardonnay and Pinot Grigio. Trader Joe's was selling it over the holidays. I just had to get this for display. So look for these kind of things and more, and share these on the Facebook page. Just take a picture of a display, a pricing, a different product. And I can tell you, this thing is just a nightmare waiting to happen. The ullage in it, oh my, the ullage, the distance between the wine and the cork is about that far. Wonder how long that's gonna last. Okay, any questions? Yay! Well, welcome to the deep part of the course, and we'll be diving into it. And then Monday night we're going to go through a review of all this. And so make sure you can at least get into the Wine Biz Sim project, find the cost of goods calculator, just play with it, name it, and save it. And then it's something you can work on for the entire course, especially for some of the newbies. For some of you, you're already running your winery business plans, and that's always great to see. And then for study purposes, use it to really, really get present to how much of the impact of these decisions of grapes and processing and barrels make, so that you can learn to compare and contrast different production models intelligibly for your Master of Wine papers, okay? Jill, a question or just all set?
I was gonna say thanks.
You're welcome. That's great. Thanks, everybody.
I was wondering when you're gonna open that bottle of wine.
Out to you, and glad so many people could make it. This is a really great class. I'm glad to see so much participation. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.